Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and one of the worst things ever is owing someone so much money that you can't even afford to make the minimum payments, and on top of that, you can't even afford to pay the interest. And that usually means late payments, your credit score gets ruined, and a lot of bad things basically happen. It is stressful, and the information I'm going to give you in this video, how do I know it actually works? Because I owed around $13,000 in credit card debt. I paid off in 6 months. My credit score is over 750, and I have everything I basically need because I didn't screw up all these parts, okay? But the idea is I'm not special. So if I was able to do this, this plan is also going to work for you. It's like having a map. Map leads you from point A to point B. Doesn't matter who follows it, you're also gonna get there. Maybe a lot faster, maybe a little slower, but the point is you are going to be on your way to fixing all of those issues. Now, in this video is for people that basically owe a lot of money in credit card debt. Have, for example, such a large minimum payment where they can't even handle it anymore. You know, paying $38 a month isn't a big deal, but once you get into the hundreds of dollars every single month, it does make a big difference, okay? So I'm gonna give you an entire plan on how to pay off your credit card debt and how to potentially even save money. And I'm also gonna give you a nuclear option to wipe everything out, but that should really be about the last thing you think about. So do everything here first before you go into the nuclear option. Now, as always, guys, destroy the like button. I appreciate it a lot. On top of that, also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notified because I do post videos on paying back debt and how to build credit. And on top of that, how to make money in the stock market, which is also very important because paying debt is cool, but having investments when you actually retire is even cooler. Now, the very first thing is, guys, okay, if you have a problem where you owe so much money that you can't even afford to basically pay the minimum payments, the answer is, by the way, the minimum payments is usually 1% of the balance along with the fees and interest. So if you can't afford to pay that, a lot of the times you say, well, I can't pay this. I'm gonna stop making payments. I don't wanna answer the phone. Like, they're gonna call me. Like, let's just shut down completely. The answer is, that's not what you wanna do, because you know what's worse than having somebody pay you late is having somebody not pay you at all. So imagine it from a creditor point of view, from the actual bank you owe money to. They want you to pay. You paying late, that's a big deal, obviously, but you not paying at all is much greater of a deal. And on top of that, these are non-collateralized loans. And what that basically means is, if I don't pay my credit card, like, the worst that can happen is to put me in default, and then they basically sell that debt to a collections company. If they can't collect, then what happens? Nothing happens, okay? They can't come after my house. They can't come after my car. They're gonna ruin my credit score. But if you have everything you need, then who really cares? You know what I mean? So my point is, you never wanna have that attitude, but the point is, you wanna see that leverage that you basically have, so you're able to have a conversation where you don't feel like the credit card company is going to take advantage of you. My point is, that can happen sometimes where they basically make you feel like you have no other options, when in reality, you also have power because you can choose to stop paying, and that basically has them lose money. They can't come after your personal assets, so who actually is gonna win here, okay? The point is, you wanna come to a situation where everyone here is going to win, where you can pay off your bill, where they get their money, and no one's credit score is basically completely ruined. Although it might take a temporary hit, and you have to be prepared for that. Don't expect the situation to turn out perfectly, because it probably will not. Now, here's the first thing you want to do when you're going to talk to your creditor. You want to ask for free things first. That is FREE, free things first. That means, for example, you explain your situation to the customer service rep, and you ask them, what are the options here? What can you guys actually do? And the script might sound like this. Hey, I know I've been missing payments. I haven't been able to actually pay on time. And here are the reasons. I'm having a lot of hardship. I can't afford this. I also have a lot of other people that I basically owe money to, but I'm trying to pay this off, and I don't want to basically have to default on this account. So what are the options that you guys actually have to actually help me pay off this debt as fast as possible so I can give you your money back? All right. So when you say that, and you explain the situation, they should offer you some options like, hey, we can eliminate the late fees, we can eliminate these fees, we can pause the interest, we can lower the minimum payment. They can give you something to work around, and these are all just free options here, okay? You play around with them and you see exactly which ones you like and which ones convenient you more. But that's all free stuff. Now, here's one thing. Understand these are big companies. They hire a lot of people. Some people are good customer service reps. Other people just don't get it, and they think basically you gotta pay, you gotta pay, you gotta pay. They're very dumb. So what you want to do is, if you get a bad customer service rep, don't be disrespectful. If they're not trying to work with you, don't be disrespectful. Just hang up and call back in a few hours. Guess what? You're gonna get somebody else. There are a lot of people working there, and maybe that next person is going to work with you better. So I recommend try to talk to at least 3 if the first 2 don't work out, okay? I've done that in the past, and it does help a lot. It does help a lot. Some people get it, some people don't, so you want to call in and try things out. Now, here is the settlements, okay? This is all about communicating still. We're still talking to the creditor, okay? Now, settlements are a little different, okay? You have, for example, first, lump sum payments. Let's say you got a credit line for like around $1,000, and all of a sudden now you owe around $2,000, and that's because of interest, because of fees, because of penalties, and everything else. Now, you can say, for example, wow, this is a lot of money, I can't afford it. Now, if you have $1,000 on hand, which is basically your credit line, your original credit line, you can potentially go to the creditor and basically try to negotiate with them and say, hey, I know I owe this much money, I'm not going to be able to pay it off, and I have other credit cards I have to pay. However, though, I do have $1,000, which was my original credit line, and I will be willing to pay that to you guys in full if you guys choose to forgive all the interest and penalties basically associated with the account. Now, what might happen here is if they do accept it, that might lead to them actually reporting that to your credit report and saying, hey, the balance was paid, but not in full, or it was basically settled for a certain amount. That's fine. You'll take a temporary hit, but that's fine. That way, at least you save a lot of money. So that's usually the negotiation tactic when you say, for example, hey, I'll pay the original credit line, but all this other stuff I can't afford to pay. Like, is there anything we can do about it? Okay, that's the idea. Now, number 2 is you can work out an agreement. That basically means, hey, I can't pay, but what are the options you guys can give me? That comes down to, for example, lowering the interest, pausing the interest, waiving the fees, reducing the minimum payments, and on top of that, that can potentially lead to them having to close the account, which is fine because even when they close the account, your credit score will take a hit. But again, you owe a bunch of money. Like, my point is, it's not to say like your credit score is not important. It is important. It does affect you. But when you owe a bunch of money and it's accumulating like crazy and you're drowning, you don't care about these things that much, although you should. But there are other things that are much more important, right? So taking a temporary hit on your credit report is not going to be the end of the world. But saving all this money is definitely going to make a big, big difference. Now, hardship agreement is also a settlement option. And this basically means I've lost my job, I've experienced this and that, or this and this, okay? And they basically have a special program to work with you and help you be able to pay back the balance. Now, some credit card companies, some reps will try to make your life difficult and say, no, we have no other options, you gotta pay, okay? Again, you wanna hang up, you wanna call back. And sometimes what other companies do is basically, I've spoken to negotiation companies, and what they do is they let the account kind of go into a charge off. That can be very dangerous for your credit score, so I would want to negotiate first. A charge off is basically when you haven't making any payments, the bank says, well, this basically is going to be like a loss in our account, they charge off your account, and then eventually they sell that off to collections. And once you get into collection, even if you pay collections, right, you have to make sure that they agree to wipe that off your credit score, which can be difficult sometimes, okay? But don't pay collections without having a written agreement that they're going to remove that from your credit report, because that is very, very important. Now, number 2, guys, here is once you've communicated and you reach an agreement on what you actually can do, what they can do for you, how you can make the payments, either lump sum, either you negotiated something or whatever it is, you want to get into the actual payment of this entire thing. And by the way, I actually might recommend here that you do this part of the video first before you start calling people, because having a plan and explaining the plan to them is probably going to be even much of a better idea. So the first thing is, guys, okay, you want to gather all the information you possibly can about your debts. There is nothing more stressful than having a bunch of responsibilities and not knowing exactly where you're going to get started, okay? I just know I have so many bills, but I don't know how many bills exactly, where it's coming from, who's pulling at me. That's stressful, right? So you got to make everything actually visible. You do that by writing things down on paper or in your notes, whatever you want to do. I like writing things down on paper. It helps me out a lot. And you want to ask these 5 key questions, okay? The questions are, who do I owe money to? Is it Chase? Is it Macy's? Is it Best Buy? Is it Citibank? Is it Discovery? On top of that, how much do I owe them? 1,000, 500, 10,000, a lot more? How much interest are they charging me? How much money are they trying to make off of me? Is it 13%, 15%, 26%? You find this out by calling them in or by checking online. What is the minimum payment exactly? How much am I required to pay every single month? Add them all up. How much is it exactly, okay? And lastly, what did I use that money for when I basically bought those things on that credit card? This is very important because it gives you perspective. Once you see that I bought this purse, or I bought this machine, or I bought this AirPod or this iPhone, was it really worth it? Probably the answer is no, okay? So you want to put this whole thing to perspective. And by the way, you can answer it in a sentence format where you say, for example, I owe Macy's $1,000. They charge me about 15%. The minimum payment is, for example, like $10, $24, or whatever it is. And on top of that, I borrowed the money initially to buy me some clothes or whatever. Definitely was not worth it. So those are the 5 key questions you want to answer, and you want to list them all. Having all this information is going to make the repayment a lot easier because you know what you're dealing with, okay? So now let's get into the actual strategy here. And the strategy is a 3-step plan. First, you want to have a budget, right? So that means, how do you pay somebody when you basically can't afford to cover your actual expenses? The answer is it's impossible. So having a budget in place, make it simple. It's not that complicated. If you don't need it, don't get it. If you have it and you already own it and you don't need it, sell it. It is really that simple. Stick to the basics. Shelter, utilities, grocery, transportation, and a need and a want are 2 different things, okay? So if you don't need it, don't get it. If you already have it and you don't need it, sell it. It is really that simple. It is hard to actually execute because you will be selling things that you basically wanted to keep. It will be hard when you have to say no to something because you have other plans and responsibilities at the moment. But this is temporary. And once you're done with this, you're going to be able to not have to sacrifice that much. Second thing is, you want to pick a method. And your method is basically here a method, a goal, and also a habit. These are the 3 things you're going to need to pay this back successful. First of all, method. You have 2 choices. You have, for example, the avalanche method, which is my favorite, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And you also have the snowball method, which is Dave Ramsey's favorite, but it doesn't mean you need to do it either, okay? Pick for yourself, all right? So the idea is, the avalanche method is very simple. You already have all the information, who you owe, how much you owe, the interest, all that stuff, right? You got it because I told you to have it in the second part of this video. So once you know exactly the APR, the interest, the idea is the avalanche method says pay off the credit or the account with the highest APR first. All the other accounts, you just pay the minimum on it and basically focus all the extra money to go towards the highest APR. Because this way, if you're paying the person that is charging you the most money, logically, you're gonna save more money mathematically. Now, the snowball method, which is Dave Ramsey's favorite, basically says ignore the interest rate. Look at the actual balance and start by paying off the smaller balance to the largest balance. So you pay the minimum on all of them, and then you focus all the extra money on the smallest balance. Now, what this builds is momentum. It makes you feel like, wow, this is possible. I got 1 down, now 2 more to go, 3 more to go, 4 more to go, 5 more to go. It kind of just builds up momentum. Now, the habit here, well, before I get into that, I do want to say either one works. It's not like one is not going to work, but obviously the avalanche method saves you more money. But if you know you need to have that momentum building up, then the snowball method, although it costs you more money, if it actually gets you to your goal, that's what's important. I did the avalanche method because I'm able to just basically say, hey, I'm going to do this, I do it. But if you need to build momentum, you build momentum. That is completely fine. Now, you need to have a goal in place. By when do you want to pay this whole thing off? Have that goal. So calculate it. Have a rough estimate. If I owe $10,000 and I'm going to make, for example, $1,000 payment every single month, in 10 months, I'm going to be fully debt free. It might be in 12 months, might be in 13 months, but having a plan is going to help you get there. That's the idea. And lastly, habits. You have to build a habit, and that basically means don't rely on yourself. Rely on, for example, setting up an account where when you get paid, the money gets sent over there for debt, and have, for example, all your credit cards pull the minimum from that account, and then focus on paying the extra money towards the account with the method you basically chose. That's the idea. And potentially, you could have all the minimum payments basically paused, so then this way you can basically just focus things on certain parts of the account, but that depends on what you actually agree with when it comes to your creditor. Now, lastly, here is something that I recommend highly. Get a job, okay? Get an additional job, get a side hustle, and put all that extra money, imagine that doesn't exist, and just put it all the extra money towards paying off debt. When I had around $13,000 in credit card debt, I started doing different side hustles, like thinking back to it now, right? I was doing eBay, I was flipping phones, I was doing this and that, just to make sure I can gather as much money as possible to pay back this debt as fast as possible so I don't have to worry. Now, here is one last tip if you made it all the way to this part of the video. You can always do balance transfers. That's basically when you open up a new credit card, they have a promotion that lets you transfer the balance from one credit card to this credit card, but they don't charge you interest for like 18 months. So this way you're able to tackle that one for 18 months without having to worry about anything. This works, but it doesn't work if you just go ahead and basically use the other credit card now and you have double the balance, okay? And one final piece of advice, guys, here is if you manage to get rid of all this debt and you're working towards it, stop using the credit cards. Forget about the points, forget about the cash back, forget about the credit building factors. Just stop using them for now. Don't close them down. You cut them up. You just don't rely on them anymore. Don't use them. While you're paying this stuff off, the worst thing to do is building it back up because of an emergency or because you needed this or that. Don't use them anymore. Cut them physically. Once you're done with the plan, I'll help you with another plan, which is basically look up the one bill method by TommyBryson on YouTube, and that helps you basically build credit without any of the debt. But that comes later on once you're fully done paying off the debt. Guys, if you made it all the way here, comment down below credit so I know you made it all the way here. I appreciate you guys a ton, and I hope this video actually helps you out and gives you value like it did. I wish I watched a video like this when I was going through all that stuff in college, but you got to watch it, you learn from my mistakes, and I hope this actually helps you a ton. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified, comment down below any questions. I'll be in the comments down below answering questions. On top of that, up here is another video. Over here is my face. Click and subscribe. And as always, follow me on Instagram at TommyBryson to DM me, and Long Term Team officially out.